Podcast PD for November 8th, 2015. Welcome to Podcast PD, the podcast, taking a weekly Twitter chat to another level by turning it into a podcast. We're going to be joined by Stacy Lindes, AJ Bianco, and Chris Nessie, where we're going to be talking about podcasting in education and how you can learn from podcasts professionally and personally. And welcome to Podcast PD, the podcast. I am Chris Nessie, Mr. Nessie on Twitter. I also host the House of Ed Tech podcast over on chrisnessie.com. And I am joined tonight by my Podcast PD compañera, to use the same joke twice in less than 10 minutes, Stacy Lindes. How are you?
I'm fine, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. You look a little tired today.
Just a little tired. Yep.
Why is that?
Because I just came off a 10K that I was very ill prepared to run.
Well, you look good.
Thanks. We'll see if I can walk into the building tomorrow. It'll be my test.
Well, I hope you don't hurt yourself when you walk into it.
Yeah, me too. Smarty pants.
Hey, I try. So tonight for Podcast PD, we had our homework from last week, which was to go out this week and find a new podcast to listen to, whether it was for professional purposes as a teacher and an educator, or to find some new, as I like to call it, a guilty pleasure podcast, something that just entertains you. So, Stacy, since you're here, why don't we start with you? Did you find anything, or is there something you listen to that you would like to recommend to people?
Well, I'm going to steal one of your recommendations, if you don't mind, and recommend Hidden Brain. I consumed a lot of that this weekend while I was picking up pizza and waiting for it to be done. Hidden Brain is all about, delving deep into the mind and figuring out how it works. And the episode that I listened to most recently was the one with... I think it was called Lonely Hearts, or it was the most recent one. And it was interesting because, what I don't like about it is that it's very full of commercials. And I find that bigger podcasts tend to be them. This one, they did pretty much sans commercials, which was nice because the story pretty much took over the entire episode instead of having the smaller segments that are more of the routine for the Hidden Brain podcast.
I can't disagree. I'm a fan of Hidden Brain because I did recommend it to you. I actually didn't listen to this episode because the actual episode, as you know from listening to it, was included in the most recent episode of This American Life. So
right.
Once I heard Shankar come on and say that, I was like, okay, well, I don't have to listen to this one. So, but I did hear the story and it was very compelling.
I think I remember hearing about it when it was all, like when the story broke, but just hearing the accounts that people had, and just, it almost seemed cult-like interesting after some of the other things that have been in the news lately. So,
real quick, since we are on Blab, I just want to say hello to Justin Schleider, phys ed teacher from New Jersey, who has joined the chat room. How you doing,
hey, Justin?
Let's call out some other people who are here since we're recording, and that's always fun. iPad Sammy, the artist now known as John Samuelson from Techlandia Radio. Great podcast. Brent Warner is here from edtech.tv, and he runs a great podcast, the edtech.tv podcast. Who else is here who podcasts? Brian Briggs and Ryan O'Donnell.
Yep. From Check This Out with Brian and Ryan. Or is it Ryan and Brian? I confuse it. But theirs is always a fun podcast to listen to and just get some new insight on all things happening in the world of technology and in the classroom.
Absolutely. It is a good podcast. And, hey, this is my favorite part. We have a caller.
Yay.
I bet the weather is nice and he's going to brag about it.
He brags about it. Hi, Brent Warner.
Hey guys.
What's going on, buddy?
Notice the time change, and so now I have to be indoors, and I can't show off the sunset and the beautiful skyline to you guys right now. So
it's been dark for the past 4 hours. I'm not feeling too badly for you.
Okay.
So Brent, did you do your homework?
I did it times 4. I went and searched out 4 different podcasts, new ones that I hadn't heard before.
Okay.
And I went all over the place. So I think everybody who's a podcast listener listens to Gimlet, like the Gimlet podcast, which is like Reply All and those types of things. But they put out a new one called Surprisingly Awesome, where they've got these 2 hosts and they try to pick like the most boring topic and then figure out a way to make it surprisingly awesome. And it was really, I was impressed. It was quite good. So the topic was mold. And they did a good job for the first episode. So that was a good one. I also found another podcast called The Truth, which is like, they define it as like movies for your ears. And so what they did with it is like they do a whole storytelling, like old fashioned radio kind of storytelling, but with all the modern kind of mixes of sound effects and all sorts of cool things. And so I listened to one about, it was a Halloween-y type of episode. And so it was about these 2 sisters who go to the seven rings of hell, and and kind of the story about what ends up happening with them. It was interesting, very cool. I also listened to one called The History Channeler, which is just a weird kind of offbeat comedy one. And then I listened to an education one. I went and intentionally searched out an education one too. And this is the first time I've listened to The Wired Educator with Kelly Croy.
That is a really good podcast. I'm surprised you had not yet subscribed to that one.
That's... I know. What a jerk I am. So sorry, Kelly. He was super engaging. Really, really nice. He did actually an interview with a guy called the Millionaire Educator, who does like a kind of personal finance for educators type of thing. And it was interesting. It was really cool. I like that type of stuff. I need to learn more about my finances because I am a man with crushing debt, like many of us who went to master's programs. So yeah, it was cool. I liked it, and I'm going to be subscribing and listening to more of that one too. So 4. And yeah, John, I thought the same thing. I almost skipped by The Truth because I was like, I don't smoke. I don't need this. And then I realized I took a double check on it because it was a highly recommended one. And then it's it was pretty good. So those are my 4 that I listened to. If you're going to listen to them in order, or if you want to check them out by recommendation, I think I'd go Wired Educator, Surprisingly Awesome, The Truth, and then The History Channeler, because I know not everybody has time for 4 brand new podcasts.
What are you talking about? Everybody has time for podcasts.
Well, hold on. Let me rephrase that. So I'm going to have to say the podcast of every single person who's in here, because you have to listen to Techlandia, and you have to listen to House of Ed Tech, and you have to listen to, I'm going to get run over here if I try and look at that. So anyways, it was a nice week. Because I now have such a long commute, I do have time to listen to a lot of more podcasts than I did before.
That's awesome. Brent, thank you for sharing. And real quick, since you did 4, which means you get like a check plus, since we are educators, I would now, I don't want to sound like a pain in the ass. Now I got to bleep this. Damn it. Now bleep again. Tell us about your podcast for people who are not familiar with what you're doing as a podcaster.
Yeah. So EdTech TV is a podcast based on education and technology, but I'm kind of trying to put in the slash there between ed and tech, so that it's. I think I run in with this slogan: the crossroads of education and technology, but we can go down either road. So I'm not limiting myself only. Yeah, I'm not limiting myself only to ed tech stuff exactly. I'm interested in some of the other stuff, including studies, best practices, general thoughts on the world of education, on top of recommendations for useful apps, services, and other ways that we can make the classroom better, only if it actually makes the classroom better. So that's what I kind of focus on.
Awesome. And where can people find your podcast?
Edtech.tv is the website, and then you can go subscribe on Stitcher or iTunes or your podcast your podcast player of choice, including Overcast, Downcast, or any other one.
Nice. Now, and since we have you here and you took the time to come on, when's the next episode coming out? What content are you looking forward to sharing?
The next I am actually a little bit behind right now. Oops, I'm getting feedback. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind right now because I've got currently running 3 jobs. So I've got my full-time job at USC, plus I'm teaching at 2 community colleges, which is a little exhausting and trying to keep up with everything. And I'm also in charge of all of the signs for an upcoming major regional conference, the annual conference for the TSOL teachers, the TESOL teachers. And so I'm a little behind right now, and I don't have a next episode in the can. I will probably be getting one out after the conference is over. So normally it's meant to be weekly, but it's just been a little bit of a heavy load right now.
15 minutes describing what you just said, you'd be excused for the next month.
Yeah, I have a tendency not to say no to people, and I'm working on that skill as I close the door and tell my wife don't bother me, because I'm still actually grading papers as we speak too.
Oh, is that why you have the beverage?
Yeah. It's still Sunday night. Come on, give me a break. Yes.
Break is given, Brent. Awesome. Thank you so much, buddy.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to sign out and let other people jump in, though. I'm going to be listening in, though. So
Thanks for joining us, Brent.
Thanks, guys.
You're the man. Brent Warner from edtech.tv. Be sure to check out his podcast. It is awesome. And he does have a nice backlog of episodes that you can check out as we await the next edtech.tv podcast.
Absolutely. John Samuelson, that is a great question. When do people listen to podcasts? Commuting, exercising? Why don't you join us and tell us when you listen?
Oh, I like what you did there, Stace. Well, we're waiting for someone to join in and chime in on that topic. Stacey, when do you listen to podcasts?
When I'm driving, and today was laundry day since I didn't leave the house at all. So I listened to podcasts this morning as I was doing laundry. And then this afternoon, I binged watched two new shows that I haven't been able to watch since they started.
Very cool.
Yeah.
When do I listen? I listen in the car, both ways, because I have a 45-minute to an hour commute. When I vacuum on Fridays or Saturdays, I throw the iPad mini in the backpack, and I will tote that around the house, and I'll throw podcasts on in the garage when I'm working on stuff. And welcome to Podcast PD, the podcast, Ryan O'Donnell.
Hey, Ryan.
Hi, people. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Hi.
sir.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Hey, no problem. I was in the other room, and it's hard to chime in when you got the family around.
I understand.
Children, the worst thing to happen to
Stop
podcasting.
saying that. Ian.
Yeah.
So what's going on tonight, sir?
I'm loving the Blab thing. So my co-host and I, Brian Briggs, we've been switching over to Blab too, and we haven't really used it a whole bunch with having people chime in yet. And so I really like the platform though.
It's a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So you've been in our chat. You come in and out. We see you from time to time coming in. Have you discovered any new podcasts this week that you're now listening to or that you've checked out?
Yeah, the new ones that I checked out, some were guilty pleasures, and I'm revisiting a couple of them. So my newest one is the Moth podcast, and did different stories, real life stories, people telling them, and so they go quite a ways back. So I listened to a couple interesting ones. I'm going to use one of the stories for my upcoming podcast. We do a little, what song are you listening to? And one of the stories was one of the two members from Milli Vanilli. And he talked about his story about, I know, and it was funny, and it would, we all know them as sort of a joke and kind of, what happened. And so he told his story in about 15 minutes, which really kind of, made you remember that particular time period, but just saw sort of all of the stuff that was involved and how they just kind of got caught up in this whirlwind of craziness. So
you're going to talk about this on your podcast?
Yeah, because Brian and I, my co-host, we finish up with what we're listening to. So I'm going to say what I'm listening to is Milli Vanilli.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Do you see any value in using those podcast episodes in the classroom?
The Moth. I don't know about in the classroom. They're mostly stories. What I would want to do is be able to maybe show some examples for students about how they can tell their own life stories, because most of these are they're nonfiction. So what's really kind of neat is that it almost has that sense of like a stand-up comic, telling stories. And so I'd love for kids to be able to tell their own stories and do them in their own in an audio form.
No, I like that. It's almost like a mentor text, but a mentor podcast.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then the other one that I've revisited, my guilty pleasure, I walked away from it for a while, was the Star Wars a Minute podcast. And you guys know if you see my avatar, I'm kind of a big Star Wars guy.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that in your own podcast, and I thought that just takes it to a completely different level.
And so these two guys take every minute, each episode they dissect a minute of the show. And I stopped listening for a while in the middle of the Return of the Jedi. And so I got back. They're on Endor, and I thought, hey, I got some time. So I've been listening to about 4 or 5 episodes there to get back into it, because I'm getting ready for the December release of the new movie.
Are you excited for that?
Very excited. Got about 50 to 60 of old high school friends getting together for the film.
Oh, that's a nice way to celebrate.
Yeah.
Now, are you, obviously you are a fan of Star Wars. Are you a fan to the point where you will cosplay it when you go to the movie?
I will dress up, yes. I will. I have a robe and a lightsaber. The last time I went, I did. What's that, Stacey?
We can see the robe in your picture.
Yes, you can see. Now, that's actually Photoshop. So.
Oh, is it? Nice.
But I did, yeah. I did ask my mother. She asked me, what do you want as a 43-year-old man for Christmas? And I asked for a Star Wars robe last year, and I got it. So, yeah.
Well done.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And tell us about your show, because there may be people here or who listen to this after the fact who are not familiar with what you podcast.
Well, my co-host and I, Brian Briggs, he's the Director of Innovation, which is maybe the coolest title I've ever heard of, because the innovation doesn't happen without him in his school district. So him and I, we're friends in the ed tech community, and I've been wanting a podcast for a while, because I've been listening to podcasting since Leo Laporte started years and years ago. And I wanted to do my own show. And then Brian and I got together. We said we should just kind of just share all these, because we go to these different trainings and sessions. And there he is. Look at Brian Briggs.
Hey, Brian.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good evening, Brian. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And so when Brian and I and all of our other friends, when we go out to these different, conferences and trainings, and it's all of those little kind of great little moments that we share out, and we feel like it'd be kind of nice to be able to have a place where we can share a lot of those moments out.
That's so cool. I feel like now we're on an episode of Check This Out with
Yes.
Brian and Brian.
Which I think, are we gonna record tonight, Brian? Is that the plan?
I think so.
Okay.
That's right. For Star Wars, you're dressed as Obi-Wan,
Yes.
and I'm the Jawa.
Oh boy.
Could be worse. It could be, and I'm going to say it, Jar Jar Binks.
Oh no, not supposed to go there.
Nice. So Brian, now that you are here on the show, podcasts that you're listening to that are new to you that other people should check out.
Well, Ryan will be happy with this one. He's rubbing off on me. It is called Stuff You Missed in History Class.
Yes.
That's a great
So
one.
it's just
a great one.
Yeah, it's just something I listen to since my commute's about 45, 50 minutes. Something that can play along, and just being a history buff also, it's fun to listen to.
Very cool. And so
That was
I
good.
dropped the link to our form in Google for your favorite podcast, or just whatever podcast you happen to catch.
Yeah, so that's the one I'm listening to.
Fantastic.
My wife also listens to podcasts, and she always recommends some for me. And she's listening to one now where they're breaking down the actual Serial podcast. So it's kind of like a podcast on the Serial podcast. So I hear that one once in a while.
That one's undisclosed, right?
So
Undisclosed is one of them. That's one that I'm a fan of because I feel like that one's actually gone into more depth on the whole story than Serial actually went.
okay.
Oh, I had another one I wanted to add. I forgot. Another guilty pleasure. It's called Limetown, Lime Town. Has anybody listened to that one?
No.
Limetown, it has a feel of investigative journalism like Serial, but it is fiction. And it's a week-by-week story of this fictional town that disappeared. 350 some odd people disappeared, and it was a weird science experiment gone bad. And it has a feeling like Lost. And each week they leave a really great cliffhanger from one to the next. Actually, it's not week by week. That's the frustrating part. I keep waiting for the next episode, but yeah, fun storytelling.
Well, hopefully this one doesn't disappoint me like Lost did.
I know Lost was it went bad.
I didn't watch.
That's a whole blab unto itself.
Yeah.
Nice. And where can we find your podcast, guys?
Brian, you want to give them the?
It is, our website is checkthisSiteOut.org, and then we have links from there to it.
And where can people connect with you outside of Blab and outside the podcast so they can engage and learn from you?
My Twitter is at BRIGGS, Bri Briggs. And Ryan's is?
I'm at Creative Ed Tech.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, great. Hey, I'll open up my seat if you want to get somebody else in there. Thanks for having me and you two. I appreciate it, though.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming
Thank you.
week, Brian. Appreciate
Check this out.
Check this out.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Very
They
cool.
have good chemistry. I like them.
Yeah, they're fun. I like their podcast a lot. It's like a shorter version of Techlandia, a more focused version. Although I am way behind on Techlandia. I don't even think I'm in this year with Techlandia. So
In this year? Well, actually, John was telling me, and John is more than welcome to click on the open seat and tell us about Techlandia because it is a really good podcast.
love that podcast.
We haven't made it. Well, you're going to be making more shows, John. Why don't you click in? Dramatic pause. Oh, excellent.
Look at he's joining us. Yay.
Yeah. And, of course, Peggy George is joining us tonight.
Hi, Peggy.
And let's put it out there. Peggy, you're more than welcome to call in. We'd love to have you on.
Is that new phrasing, Chris? Call in.
Yes. They update this thing like by the hour you could find changes.
I was going to say, it's been a month or so, but that's just kind of strange.
Like my hair?
Only if you like mine.
And what's left of mine.
Sorry, I was totally unprepared. I was just thinking I would chime in from the peanut gallery. But yeah, look at that. Look, I kind of look like Brian Briggs with my hair, actually. So that's not bad.
You do kind of look like Brian Briggs. That's kind of funny.
I know.
How are you?
I was going to say you look a little like Coach Belichick.
Well, I'm known for the hoodies. And repping the worst team in the NFL, the Bears. That's how we go. The Bears. Is it bad when you root against your team so you can get a higher draft choice from like the first game of the season? That's what I do.
That's bad.
It is bad. They are bad.
I'm also betting against them at the same time.
Yeah, I should. So anyway, but yeah, I wish I had some podcasts that were that I listened to a little bit. I'm trying to get better with it, but I don't know. I'm just out of it. I put in the list from Getting Smart that was on there, and of like 60 podcasts, but I'm sure some of them aren't even going right now. But the one that I listen to the most is the Bedley Brothers. And the Bedley Brothers I think that they have some really interesting people on there, and they get real guests, and Techlandia just like brings on my friends, that I know from conferences and things like that. But they had like Dr. John Hattie, and I didn't even know who that was. And then I found out he's a really big deal down, like he's like, the Australian, like Arnie Duncan-ish type person. I don't know, but something like that. So it was interesting.
Be Techlandia without an Arnie Duncan comment.
I know. And then poor Arnie Duncan. I mean, he's gone now, so I don't know what we're gonna do. The new guy I heard is just. I think he might be even worse. And if he doesn't have basketball skills, I don't know what we're gonna do then. I mean, that guy better be good at something, because besides tying teacher evaluation to test scores, that's what I think he's really good at. That's what I've been reading up on him. I haven't been reading too much, but he's scary to me now. I don't know. Arnie was fun to make fun of, but this guy might just be flat out scary to me. I don't know.
Arnie was low hanging fruit. He was.
Oh yeah. Oh god. He's so funny. But I did put we talked about him. So we started Techlandia back up last week. It was good, and we started interviewing. We've just been doing Grumpy Old Teachers with Scott Bedley. And so we don't have any format. That's why I was telling Chris, I'm like, we can't even put in show notes because there's no show notes. We just grump about stuff. We just go, oh, Apple updates, and then we talk about how I've had to update 1 million iPads and it's driving me crazy. But it's kind of funny. So that now we actually had a guest on. We had Bob Dylan, and not the singer, but the person from St. Louis, and the other Bob Dylan, who also sounds like he's kind of like Brian. He might be like director of innovation. I think that was his title as well, something like that. So, yeah, I mean, where did people get these titles?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I'd like it.
If you can make up your own, you can kind of make up cool ones. My personal one is I'm an innovation strategist.
That's a cool one too.
You like that one? Okay, because I
do. Mine is teacher resource specialist for technology, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it because
yeah, that's almost like too many words. You know what I'm saying? It's like teacher resource.
I'm a tech coach.
Right.
That's what I do.
Right. So it's kind of fun. I don't know, but I like my job. It's all over the place. It's been great up here since I moved to Portland, which is funny because when we started Techlandia, I lived in Austin. I just knew people in Portland. So now we live up in Portland, and now we have Techlandia. Trying like crazy, Chris, to get the techlandia.com website, but I think they keep messing with me. It's like these people will like email me and say, hey, you can have it for $400. And I'm like, I'm a teacher. I don't have, I'll give you like $50 for it. And they're like, no. Then they're like trying to reassign it. It's weird. I'd love to get my hands on the techlandia.com thing though. That'd be kind of fun. I don't think it's going to happen though. Then I'd have a real website, maybe.
Yeah, that .com is pretty important.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So anyway, I don't know, but so that Bedley Brothers is my one solid pet podcast, and I think that at some point we'll have Peggy George on one of our shows, but
no, you can't. You can't have her until we get her.
Yeah. Oh, okay, all right. I'll step in line then. I'm going to go in line, my proper space in line for Peggy George, because I feel like she needs to be on there. She's like, I was saying, she's like the royalty, like the ed tech person in Arizona. Peggy George, maybe the whole southwestern United States. The person that knows the most.
She's the EDU queen mom.
That's right. She is.
All hail Peggy George.
Hey, so I was going to ask you, Chris, what was the new? I saw that there was a new one on the Education Podcast Network. What was the? What's the new show that's coming on?
The newest show added to the network. Thank you for asking, and that was totally unsolicited. So that's really cool that we're on the same page. The newest show added is Better Leaders. Helps if I get the name. Better Leaders, Better Schools by Daniel Bauer.
Oh, that's exciting.
And I actually had a great conversation with him earlier this week because he reached out to me, and I had already been subscribed to his podcast. And it's another podcast where you think by the title it's geared only towards school administrators or an aspiring administrator, but it's way more than that, because we're all teacher leaders. We're all leading somebody some way, whether we're in the classroom and we're leading our classroom of kids, or we are that aspiring administrator, or maybe we're a department chair. We're all leading somewhere. Thank you, Peggy. Better leaders, better schools. I think that's what I said.
See, how does Peggy know that? Peggy just knows that stuff.
Peggy was listening, and she's kind of recording our chat in a text on the side.
That's right. She's like, oh, there's something happening in the ed tech world. Let me hone in on that. Boop, boop, boop. And it comes to her like that. I know the new podcast. It's Better Leaders, Better Schools.
At betterleadersbetterschools.com.
There you
Wow.
go.
Oh, see, they got the .com.
On top of it.
Yeah, they were on top of theirs. I should have looked at mine before I made up the name of my podcast. But yes,
Peggy George is like the I'm going to make an Arrow reference. She's like the Felicity of the ed tech world. She's just in the background. She's on the computer, getting everybody their information.
That's right. She's kind of like to Arizona what Craig Yen is to California. I feel like Craig Yen is in on everything too. Like Craig Yen, like you can't go to a Twitter chat without Craig Yen like quoting something. Do you feel that way, Chris? Have you seen? I mean,
Yes.
that's the way I feel. Like it doesn't matter with the East Coast. He's on the West Coast. It doesn't matter. He's just all over the place.
He's everywhere, and as he always says, by his own admission, sleep is overrated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when or if he does it, but I mean, God bless him. He's a phenomenal resource, and he always contributes positively to any conversation he's a part of.
He does. He's good. And you know what? While I'm there, watch this. Ready? Watch how I did this, Chris. Happy birthday, Craig Yen. Happy birthday, Carl Lindgren Stryker. It's their birthdays today. Two great California educators. And I know that because I'm on Facebook. The only thing Facebook's good for is knowing when people's birthdays are. But it's Craig Yen's birthday.
And Google Calendar.
And Google Calendar, right. That's the only way I get my notifications. So there it is. So anyway, that's pretty fun. Well, that's cool about the new podcast then. I'll have to look at that. I know that there are many schools that need better leaders based on the ones that I've worked at.
Absolutely. Now, real quick, while I have you here, you emailed me and you were talking about Adobe Slate.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do a little podcast PD House of EdTech crossover.
Okay.
And talk a little bit about Adobe Slate, because I think I checked it out. I hadn't yet heard of it, but share your experience and what that's all about.
Okay, so I sit here, and so I really like to take notes the old-fashioned analog way. And so I can show you the notes from the other night when we were talking with Bob Dylan. Here they are right here on my big, Evernote-friendly Post-it notes. And so what I did was I sit there and I just like to jot the notes down. But then, right, like a real show, Chris reminds me that a real show would have like show notes that you could link to in like a Google Doc. And so I thought, all right, now what we used to do these things called Learnist boards, and Learnist is a cool site too, but I want it to be simple and easy when I go through and do it. And so Adobe really has some cool products coming out, and Adobe Slate is an app, but it's also on the web. You just sign in with your Adobe Creative Cloud account, and it looks very similar to Sway, if you've seen Sway from Microsoft. Sway is trying to be, I'm sorry, those are my kids taking a bath. Sway is trying to be the Microsoft PowerPoint like upgrade or whatever. And so when you make this Adobe Slate, I find it a little bit easier than Sway, and I like the way it goes. But you can make kind of these nice little website rolling stories. So it's like visual notes for me then. So I just went and I thought, what were the things we talked about? Bob went to the White House. We talked about Tina Turner is from St. Louis. I put a picture of Tina Turner in there. It just searches right in there. And I like to try that stuff out because I know that could be really useful for students in classes. I've just got to figure out how to get it in and work it into some lessons and do those with teachers. Right now we're doing Adobe Voice lessons just to make quick videos on the iPads, because you can do that kindergarten through, 100-year-old. So it's easy.
Surprise! You talked about something you could do on an iPad.
Right, I know, and that's why. So when I made a slate, I got a new computer, and it was the first time that I've actually like just manned up and bought the biggest, best computer. So I bought the new iMac 27-inch Fusion Drive thingamajigger. So I was like, okay, I sold my soul to try and get this big computer. I really like desktop computers. As crazy as that sounds, like I'd much rather have a desktop computer than a laptop. I don't know why. So that's just me. But Adobe Slate, so I'm going to try it out and see how it works. And then if it doesn't, Chris, I'll abandon it later. But I thought it looked kind of cool. And then you just put your podcast out. You can put links in there and links to videos. And I don't know. I thought it looked kind of cool.
It does. Like it looked cool to use. The end result is beautiful to look at. But my question to you, I don't know if you had seen my email, was after you create it, does it produce a link? Is it something you can you're publishing it to the web?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's right. So you, of course, came through and I said, Chris, what do I do? Help me out. I'm brain dead on a Friday. So I emailed you, and then you're like, yeah, just put it as a link into your show notes then. And so then that'll be the trick then. I'll just have to go back in afterwards because I wanted to put a link to the show as like the first slide or whatever in it. So yeah, it's an easy link. I'm making a blog post right now where I was talking about the first show a little bit, and you can embed it into your website too. So it's a link, you can embed it. It looks kind of cool. I kind of like Adobe Slate, so I'm going to keep going with it. Adobe's kind of on the money with some of their new products lately.
Cool.
That's all I got. Stacy, do you keep getting? Stacy, does your Wi-Fi keep failing you?
I have no idea.
The blab.
Tonight, I got ready to take my computer and throw it out the window.
I can't figure out the blab. Like blabs would be perfect, but we've had some technical problems. I can't tell if it's like Wi-Fi on somebody else's end or Scott Bedley likes to do it on a Chromebook, and I'm like,
I've never had this problem before.
Okay,
so it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, that is always frustrating.
And I'm getting observed tomorrow, so if this craps out, I'm going to be really upset.
That's right. Oh, the great observation. You gotta love those. Yeah. Well, good luck on your observation.
Thank you.
I don't even know how they would observe me anymore. I just have an office at the district office. I tried not to be there. That's my whole goal. Like not like just in schools. I hide out in schools and just work in their libraries. And
my official title still warrants me as a teacher, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I know. I love the ability to come in and teach a lesson, but then I can also just get them all hyped up, and then I can leave.
It's like grandparents. I have grandparent status.
It is kind of like grandparent status. I feel that's what I am, and I'm old, so that fits. That's good.
That's not what I meant.
No, that's what I'm taking that though. That sounds good. Well, thanks for having me on. I should probably pop off and let somebody else come on. The Peggy George needs to come on here.
Hold on, before you pop off, real quick, just to let everybody know where they can connect with you and where they can find your podcast.
Yes, so my podcast right now, until I can take over that nice domain name, is you can go to techlandiaradio.com, which will unfortunately redirect you back to iPadSammy.com, the name that I will never escape. Even though I like lots of things other than iPads, I guess I'm stuck with it, but I do love I love iPads too, so. But yes, so you can go to Techlandia Radio, and you can find me on the Education Podcast Network. I don't know if you've heard of that, Chris.
I've never. What is that? Tell us a little bit about it, John.
I don't know. I was telling you, I've been sharing it on Edmodo a little bit. Can I tell you just one more funny? Can I tell you? I got into an Edmodo fight last night. And can I tell you the story of this? I mean, it's a serious thing. And okay, so all right, so on Edmodo, you can share things, right? So a lot of times I'll share, like if there's a new podcast or like that Adobe Slate, I'll share it on there because there's so many educators on there, right? You can just share it in like the language arts, and there's like 500,000 people on there. So I go in and I told you I've been sharing the Education Podcast Network. So I share the site. People can go and find podcasts. They don't know where to go find podcasts sometimes. So I've shared one of my old Scoop It pages, just, I don't know, out of the blue. And this person goes, well, you could have just used Graphite by Common Sense Media. And I was like, and then they rambled in again. And then they said, oh, you're just self-advertising. It's your website. And I was like, I kind of looked at that. And so they had like two conversations. I said, yes, that is my Scoop It page. No, I don't make any money off of it. I just put resources to share with people there. And that's, and then they just went, well, blah, blah, blah. And they just kept telling me that they were right and I was wrong and I should use Graphite. And so I said, you know what? I said, the thing about it is I didn't know that you were you could tell me what I should use and you're like in charge of that for everyone. And then I just went on to say, whatever tool works for the person is usually what I would use. Like some tools work different for other people, and that's what I use, and blah, blah, blah. Thank you. Have a nice day. And they just kept coming at me. And it was this long thing. And then I thought it would be over. And then somebody would jump in and say, thank you. It must have taken you hours and hours to do that. Thank you for sharing your resource. And then the person got all mad. And so it was just really funny. And then they threw their doctorate in my face and said, well, you know what qualifies me? I'm the head of STEM education and I have a doctorate. What are your qualifications? And I was like, I said, I don't have any qualifications. And I just kind of said, thank you for giving your opinion, though. But that was an Edmodo fight. I was like, oh my gosh, only I could get into a fight on Edmodo, like the tamest website for education ever.
I was going to say, I thought it was like the happiest place in the world.
I know, right? The funny thing is, like 5 people after they saw that, like connected with me. They're like, here. And then they direct messaged me and said, what a jerk the person was being. And I thought, yeah, why are you I said if you don't like my resource, you can just ignore it and you don't have to say anything snarky. Like, I wasn't being snarky. Graphite is a non-profit blah 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 blah. I'm like, I know what graphite is. You're talking to me now like I don't know what I know graphite. I just don't use graphite. I'm sorry. I've used this old silly Scoop It for a while. But so that was my story. Edmodo fighting.
At what point did you want to say and pull the I'm John Samuelson card? I'm telling you. Come on.
I know. I just didn't. I didn't want to say anything. I was like, yeah, we're not getting into a fight about qualifications here. I'm sorry that you're a professor on Long Island at some college and have a doctorate. I just have,
Thanks for narrowing it down, John.
Right.
Posters. Jeez.
Yeah. But that was funny because I was so that's my story from yesterday. I thought, wow, this person was going after me just for sharing my Scoop It page. And I thought, well, I'm glad it wasn't the Education Podcast Network I shared. They probably just start to try and take it down or something. They'd be like, oh, I see that. You have a podcast on there.
Brent Warner has a new website for you. He recommends that you register edtechbully.com.
I should. That would be great. All right, I'm going to go. EdTech Bully. Right, and then I said the one thing I said that really got them back then, that got them all fired up again, I shouldn't have said it, was I just said, well, you're because I was trying to be nice. I said, your doctorate obviously wasn't in digital citizenship. That's very sad to me. And then that were just, they lit off on that one.
Oh my God.
So, I know. Here we are on the site that kids are supposed to use. Adults not practicing. I was trying, but right, they were really trolling me. Like there were some where they were just like, I should send you the conversation, you would laugh.
That's insane.
All right, so anyway, I just wanted to say that on a podcast. Now I wanted to say that on my podcast, and I've got it out of my system. It's been cathartic for me, so thanks.
Sorry you encountered that situation. That's pretty unfortunate.
I know. I just thought it was so funny. I'm like, of all the random things, I never share that resource. I was like, oh, you know what? I've been doing that from silly website for about 4 years. I'll throw it out there.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes a new segment on the Podcast PD show. John Samuelson pops a cord.
I know I took over. I'm so sorry. And
oh, that's cool.
I just couldn't believe that, and I just wanted to share that with somebody else because the other people that came in and supported me, I thought, okay, that's great. That was real. That was nice of people to actually just go and say, that person's being really mean to you, and you're trying to be really nice, and you're making them look really foolish. And I'm like, I don't know. Edmodo, who tries to go right? That goes to a bigger thing. I mean, why do educators think they have the one? I mean, that person, I guess, has never heard of differentiation in their classroom, and doesn't, So interesting. All right, I better go because now my kids are out of the bathroom and now they're going to be toot the whole time.
Sounds like you're missing a good time over there, John.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Sean,
thanks for coming on, buddy.
Well, that was fun. That was a crazy story.
You had a great comment in the chat. Who trolls Edmodo?
Who trolls Edmodo? You troll Twitter. You might troll Facebook if you're lonely. I don't know. Who trolls a site for teachers and students? Oh my goodness.
Oh, Peggy, I want to apologize. I see your question. Is he still doing grumpy old teachers on Friday nights on Blab? Send him a tweet.
He said yes.
I'm sorry. Oh, he did say yes? Okay, so there, we've answered that question. Oh, wow, look at that. Do you see what I see?
Yeah,
What's on?
her question just showed up in the middle of our open seats. How did she do that?
Well, I made it do that because I clicked on answer question. Do you also see that? Or did you see her question on the left-hand side?
Huh.
That's cool. So we answered it.
With him. She's going to be the new guy, the new person on Blab.
The questioner.
Oh, I'm sorry, Peggy.
All right, let's we're 20 minutes overdue for our half-hour chat.
Yes, and I have ice cream to eat.
Ooh, a little bit of Cherry Garcia.
Yes, and then the husband found some seasonal one that has a beer flavored ice cream with chocolate and other good stuff in it. Also by Ben and Jerry's. So
Awesome. Let me cue the music. And sorry, Stacey, you haven't said anything awkward that prompts me to cue the music.
thanks.
This is so mellow.
Is that the end of the music? Is that our end music?
Yeah. So, Stacey, we had a lot of fun here today talking and sharing new podcasts. Anything stand out to you that you're going to check out now that you hadn't heard of?
There are a lot. I want to check out the Bedley Brothers because that sounds interesting. And then the one show that I think Ryan mentioned that the name totally escapes me. So I'm going to have to go back into the notes on the side or listen to the podcast again and check it out. The one that he mentioned where it's the true stories. So, and then at some point I missed all of Brent's recommendations because again, my Wi-Fi cut out. So my computer froze.
You can check the replay, and when I assemble some show notes for this, they will be there.
Good. Please, in the show notes, add the form for recommendations.
Yes, that would be great. So before we get out of here, Stacey, where can people connect with you?
I am on Twitter. My handle is @iruntech. The wonderful Jen Williams has challenged me to write a blog post at a minimum every 2 weeks. So I will be writing on my website, which is iruntech.me. So look for that coming soon.
Awesome. I will, because I am a fan of your stuff.
Thanks, Chris. How about you?
I am, of course, still Chris Nessie. I'm Mr. Nessie on Twitter, and I host the House of EdTech podcast on my website, chrisnessie.com. So for AJ, who only popped in, and for Stacey, I'm Chris, and this was Podcast PD, where we did new podcast, show and tell. Till next time, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us.